Here we go. I was sitting in the sitting room of the college with my guitar and sheet music, trying to fix the Atlantis Lights song. It just did not flow the way Danny wanted it to, and he had asked me to see if I could do something with it. If and we tell him, he is going to go off, I heard Emmett's friend Law say. If and we don't tell him, he is going to go off. Either way, he is destined to go off, I heard Emmett reply. The two boys, I believe, spent as much time at this cottage as they did at the palace. It was the year of 70. Classes were out. That meant Emmett and his friends were here even more. Well, if and you all tell him, I don't want to be around, I heard another say, and the 6 kids came into the room. They were Emmett, Law, 2 of their other friends, Cyrus and Maverick, and 2 girls, Pertina, which Emmett claimed to be his girlfriend, and Princess Juanita, who was the king's oldest daughter, and Emmett wanted to be his girlfriend. Emmett was cute, and the older he became, the cuter he seemed to get. They entered into the room where I sat. Pretty lady, seen my brother? Emmett asked me. I looked up to him and smiled. Not since about an hour passing. He said he was going to be in the Circle Lodge, I told him, or them. What is wrong? I then added. Nah, that is all right. Having one of you go off is sufficient enough, Emmett said, and I could not help myself yet to laugh softly at what he said. Now, why would I go off? I asked. You really should not ask those types of questions. Not good for your nerve system. You know, Maverick spoke up saying, and I got this bad feeling. Emmett, Law, what is going on? I asked. Come on, no. Make us tell you before we tells Danny, Emmett said. Prince Emmett Humberg, I cautioned. I just knew this was a bad idea. Nobody listens to me, Cyrus said. The 2 young ladies just stood there looking from one to another as we spoke. All right, we has to tell Danny that one of his courtesans are in the South Tavern, and she is chained there for being in trouble, Emmett said. Now call it intuition or what you may. However, I just knew this someone was my sister. Really? Why? I asked. Well, see, it is like this. Her met up with 2 other girls, and they were overheard about leaving the kingdom. We believes, and the guards took them to Tony, and Tony tried to contact Dan. However, Dan was somewhere not to be found, so we agreed to come in and find them. He is going to go off, Emmett said. You thought I would go off because the court is my Jolene, I asked. Damn, she's good. Law started laughing. Shut up, Law, Emmett then said. Yep, really not think she was going to go, however they catched her, and the other 2 at the entrance of the Mystic Forest, Emmett had said. The Mystic Forest was a large forest just north of Atlantis. Why she would be entering that forest, I do not know, as it was not the safest place to enter. What were all of you doing at the tavern? I asked. Waiting on Mike and Lauren. They are making a disc with Partina for extracurricular points. I did not understand that and looked to Partina. What does that mean? I asked. They started this new ordeal in classes that we all have a class break assignment. That is due first day when classes resume. Mine is to make an audio recording. Mike and Laura agreed to assist me in 5 songs, Partina told me. I think we need to find Danny, Emmett said. I stood and looked from one to the other. I will go with you to the tavern, I told them. Hey, you did not go off the way we thought you go off, Cyrus spoke up, saying, and I laughed, and we moved out of the cottage and into a carriage and headed to the square. Leaving the carriage outside the square, we ran into Danny and Alex, along with their brothers. Peter, Danny looked to me, then the 6 kids. Going on an outing, my lover? Danny asked. I take it Tony has not found you, I told him. When you say things like that, it is never a good outcome. What did the bunch of you do now? Alex asked Emmett and his friends. Hey, we did nothing. We were doing nothing, Emmett said. Yes, Emmett, I believe that as much as I believe Patsy will lose her voice, Peter said. Kiss off, Emmett then replied to Peter. Your mouth really needs to be busted at times, Peter then replied. Come on, fool, and try it. Emmett seemed to challenge him. All right, Peter, who in the Lord's name is the oldest here? Cease it, Danny said. I am the older than the 2 of you, he then said, as if that made him look better. I smirked. Act it, big brother, Danny said. Then looked to me. What is going on? He asked. The kids did not do anything. It seems Tony has Jolene and 2 others chained in the tavern. They tried to leave the kingdom. I said, calm, praying. He remained as calm. This does not add up. It has been over 2 full cycles. Why would she result back into escaping? He asked me, and I shrugged. Peter returned to the lodge. I will be back there as soon as I take care of what is going on, Danny told him. Right. He seemed to be in a rude mood and moved down the main street of the square. I think you pissed him off, Alex spoke up, saying. He is lucky I didn't knock the piss out of him, Danny then said. What his problem? Emmett asked. I don't know. Peter has had an attitude ever since he returned from Xanadu last month. Word is he and Princess Penny got into a dispute, and she was having a party. Damn, I don't know. Besides, he has had an attitude ever since. The closer the end of the millennium it comes, people start acting stupid, Scott said, coming up on us as we walked to the tavern. I watched as he picked up Juanita and tickled her, and screams and squirms laughing. Hey, princess, he said, placing her back on the ground. Scott, you about give me a heart failure, she said, and they laughed. We have at least 30 years before the end, so why is it all going crazy now? Danny asked as we came up on the tavern. Well, the Millennium High Priest has to take a stand in the next 15 to 20 years, Scott said. So you going to climb that mountain in 15 more years, Alex said. Drop off. I am not climbing that forsaken mountain. I keep telling Father this. One of you will. It will not be me, Scott said as he looked about, and Tony came over to us. I looked around and did not see Jolene or the others the kids spoke of. Maybe I climbed the mountain, Emmett said, and I laughed hearing him. You are too young. Father would not allow it, Alex said. Father best come up with something. He only has about 15 full year cycles, and actually that is pushing it, Scott said, looking to Tony. There you are, Tony then said, looking to Danny. Yes, here I am. I am told you have something that belongs to me. Want to tell me what happened? Danny asked as Scott and Alex moved to a table, and I heard Mike called for the children, they took off running onto the stage. I cannot really say what happened, and she is not telling me. I know Brian, Chuck, and I were walking the perimeter of the kingdom and noticed three women walking. I think I'm getting tired. We'll try this again. And noticed three women walking toward the opening of the forbidden forest. So we moved up on them. As they entered the area, we seized them, Tony said, and you could see Danny become on edge with what he was saying. Danny, before you go off the handle, she did not fight us, she did not try and get away from us. She is also not saying what she was doing there, he said, seeming to be trying to take up for my sister. Where is she? Danny asked. They are in the back in my office, Danny said. Who are the owners of the other two? Danny asked. One is free and the other is her court, he told Danny. Please tell me you do not have a chained free woman in your office, Danny said. Tony laughed as we all walked through the tavern and down the hall to his office. No, she gave me no reason to chain her, he had said as we entered, and as we did, the free one stood, and seeing Danny, she moved to one knee and bowed her head. The other girl and Jolene moved their upper body to the floor in a royal greeting. They were not chained as Emmett made it. They were not chained as Tony made it out to seem. Or no, they were not chained as Emmett made it out. Seemed they only had a chain linked the two courts together, and the chain was secured to a ring in the floor. Danny and I stood looking to the three of them. First thing is first, rise. Who are you, and what were you doing with my courtesan? Danny asked the female. Greetings, your highness. I am Liza Carmine. I own the Carmine jewel in tray. Joy is a friend of mine. My guards were awaiting at the first post. We were not unescorted, and Joy wanted to see Charlie, who is one of my guards. On my word, your highness, she was not trying to run, nor was she going with me. Please believe me, the female said, and I blinked and looked to her. Liza? She was my mother's sister. She was our aunt. Aunt Liza, I said, looking to her. Yes, Patsy. She smiled and moved to me. Danny was now looking from me to her. All right, someone tell me why I feel I should be upset yet not upset at the same time? He laughed. Danny, this is my mother's youngest sister, Liza. I told him. Your Highness, Liza started to say. Danny. My name is Danny, Danny said to her. Danny. I only wanted to visit with my niece. I was not trying to take her, nor was she trying to escape. Liza said, and Danny looked to Tony. Unchain them, he said. Why did you not tell the guards who you were and what you were doing? Danny asked. I thought it's best not to say anything, as Joey said she was not all that trusted, and I did not want to make things worse than they appeared to be. She replied. Forgive me, Jolene said in a whisper. You really have done no wrong. Why were you going to Forbidden Forest? Danny asked her. It is where I was camped. She smiled. Brave woman, Danny replied. The animals and such are not as bad in the forest as they are outside it. And I like the surroundings much better, she replied. I was wanting to ask if I could spend time with Joey. I am not sure if you would let her stay with me, just for a short time or not. After the passing of 5 full year cycles, I had thought to have lost her, and finding her has brightened my day. Finding you both has made this trip worth the travel, Liza said. Danny, I asked. I will leave that up to you. If you wish her to go, then she may go, he told me. For how long, Liza? I asked. You can come also, she smiled, and finally hugged me, as I knew she wanted to. I placed my arms around her. I have way too much to do. However, she may go with you. I think being with you will be good for her. However, little sister, I started to say, I know if I try anything stupid, my master will replace me in the field, and there is where I will remain. She laughed. No, I will place you in a used room, Danny smirked. Master would never, Jolene said, surprised. Danny laughed. With the reaction I just got, I just might, if you do anything stupid, he cautioned her. Jolene's mouth opened and closed and opened and closed. I laughed. He does own you. He can very well do as he pleases, Joey, Liza said, I believe not helping at all. Whose side you on? Jolene asked. The side that keeps me free and out of trouble, Liza replied, and I had to laugh. That night we spent talking, and when she left, Jolene went with her. She was to return in 3 weeks, passing. Okay, chapter 24. Now things seemed to go well, then go bad, then, as one can say, really bad. I was sitting in the sitting room of Devar. I was waiting on Danny as I was watching a production about a love affair between a peasant girl and a king. All right, it was noise I had going as I worked. However, it gave me a good idea for a song. It had been 2 weeks since my sister had went with my aunt to Trey. Sandy came into the room and healed. I looked up to her. Yes? I asked. Patsy Tony needs you in his office. It seems you have a call from Trey, she said. Now the worst came to my mind. Jolene tried to escape once again, or had ran off. I stood quickly and moved out of the sitting room and down the hall, and then up the stairs to the office and into Tony's. Tell me she did not do anything stupid, I said, moving into the office. I would if I could. However, I cannot, for I do not know what your aunt wants, other than she wishes to speak to you and is upset, he said, handing me the hand base of the colocom. I took the base. Liza, what is it? I said. Patsy, I need you and Trey. Forgive me. I should have informed the circle. However, I was not sure what to actually do, she said, seeming to try and remain calm. Liza, when did she leave? How long has she been missing? I asked her. Patsy, my child, you always do think the worst before the best. She is not missing. I know very well where she is. She is... However, I cannot assist her. John has her. He will not let her return to me. He's seen us at the square market and grabbed her. I do not understand what he's trying to do, she told me, and all this made little to no sense. What do you mean he grabbed her and has her? I asked. Just as I said, he took her 3 days ago from me. I tried to reason with him. However, he is always drunk. He read her collar and informed me that I was to inform you that he has her, and you may come for her if you so wish her return, she said, and I stood there not really believing what I had heard. Why would my father even care what happened to us? He sold us. Liza, I will inform Danny and see what he wishes to do about this. I assume he knows it is me, I said. Patsy, that is why I was trying to get her back myself. I did not want to involve you. He said he sold the two of you into Thorntonsea, and that is where he expected the two of you to remain. Patsy, I really fear for you. He is not the same man that my sister married so many years ago, she said, and started to cry. Calm down. I will see you soon. Let me get with Danny and see what he wants to do. Stay away from him. Do you hear me? I said to her. Patsy, what if he tries to harm her or you? She then cried more. Please, Liza, calm down. Jolene will be all right, and so will I. I will see you as soon as I can. Do you still live in the same place as you did when I was a youth? I asked. Yes, I do. 2R Street, 59th Cottage, she told me. See you soon, I told her, and looked to Tony. Trouble? She tries something stupid, he asked. No, my father has, I said, and moved out of the office and down the hall to the consolation room, where I knew the others were. The guard stood at the door. Inform Prince Daniel I need a word with him, I told the guard. My lady, they are not to be disturbed, he told me. I am aware of this. Please do as I have said, I told him. He nodded his head, and the door opened. Yes, Doug, I heard Scott say. Forgive the interruption, however, Lady Patsy insists on speaking with Prince Daniel, he said. Let her in here, I then heard Danny say, and the guard looked to me. With a motion of his hand, I entered. As I did, Danny and the others stood. Patsy, what is amiss? Danny asked. I stood there. I was not sure as to what to say or how to say it. Danny, we have a problem, or I do. I started to try and explain. Darling, what is it? He asked. My father has my sister. He said if I want her, I will have to come and get her. I said, not sure as to what was going on or what my father was thinking. Really? Does he realize he has the property of the throne? Anthony, who was another of his brothers, spoke up and asked. I am not sure what he knows or does not, I said. Looks as if we take a trip to Trey, Scott then said. Danny, Liza is worried. I really do not know what all is going on, besides my father taking my sister from her and insisting I retrieve her, I said. Since when does this circle involve themselves with what a kingdom circle should? A taking courtesan is not a threat to the Sultan or the garden, Peter spoke up, saying. This is true, Peter. However, this so-called taken courtesan belongs to me. Therefore, it is my affair, Danny replied. As Daniel is the third admiral of this circle, then it is this circle's affair. Mike, Alex, Danny, and I will go to Trey and see what is going on. Danny, I will inform Father and meet you in the courtyard in the passing of an hour, Scott said. I object, Peter said. You are the only one that does, Travis spoke up and said. Peter gave his brothers a mad look and left the room. Scott stood up and also left. Danny, forgive me, I replied. For what? Informing me my property is being held by a drunken fool? He asked me. Hearing him speak of Jolene as he did, for some reason made me feel regretful for her and hurt by him. He placed his arms around me. Patsy, I mean no harm in what I just said. Other than Peter is right. If I owned her not, we, as in the Sultan circle, could not interfere. As she is my property, then we can. That is all I was meaning. You know she means more to me than just a Dinah, he said, and oh, how I hated him at times. He could read me way too easy. I know it was from his ability he had. I had it also, just not as keen as he did. As Scott said, we all met in the courtyard of Devar. It was Danny, Scott, Mike, and Alex, along with Tony, Brian, Sandy, Laura, and Donnie. Donnie was Alex's wife at the time. We all mounted and moved to the road leading out of Atlantis to Trey. It would take 3 hours from Devar to reach the village of Trey. I could not imagine what my father was up to or even why. When we reached Trey, they followed me to Lizzie's cottage. She was actually pacing outside the yard. As we rode up, she ran over to me. Patsy, forgive me. I never thought we would return to Trey. I never thought he would return to Trey. He had been banished. She started to cry. I dismounted and placed my arms about her. Calm down, Liza, please. What do you mean he had been banished? I asked. It was a couple years passing after he sold the two of you. He became in a challenge with one of the casino dean proprietors. He owed him a lot of coin. He threatened John of a collar debt if he did not pay. In return, John challenged him and taking his life. Count de Leon told him that he was to leave Trey and not return. He left. I never expected to see him return, she said. Father never did wise up, I told her. And looked to Danny. Where is he holding Jolene? Danny asked. Danny, he is good. I know you're good. However, John was at one time of this kingdom circle. That was before Karen passed over, Liza said. What do you fear, Lady Liza? Scott asked. That he wishes the life of his daughters, she said, crying. Where is he? Scott then asked. He is in the town of Kendra. He is the overseer. I did not know this until yesterday. That is when I decided to contact Patsy, she said. Liza, go inside and relax. We will return, Danny told her. He then looked to me and the others. Patsy, you and the other ladies remain here, Danny said, and I could not believe he said that. Danny, he said for me to retrieve her. Please do not do this, I replied. Patsy, he said inside. Your sister is my property. Regardless that he is your father, he is holding my property. That alone has nothing to do with you, he told me. Prince Daniel Humberg. Yes, she belongs to you. However, my name is engraved on that collar about her neck as well, I protested. There is no need for all of us to ride into the town, Danny said. Laura and the others can remain at the interlocking camp, Scott spoke up, saying. I wish to come also, Liza said. Danny just started laughing. I give up, he said, and Liza mounted, and we all followed her to the town she spoke of. It was not odd for a small community to spring up over the Saltern. These small communities were referred to as towns. They are smaller than the villages. Actually, very small. When we arrived at the interlocking camp, we left the horses there. Alex remained with the others. Danny, Scott, and Mike and myself moved on foot to the town. The town, as we entered, a man came up to us. Your name and business need to be stated, or you can about face and leave. We care not for strangers about here, he said. Right. Name would be Admiral Executive Prince Scott Humberg of the Saltern Circle. As for business, "Are you John Sanders?" Scott asked the man, and I knew he was not my father. "No, I am not," he replied. "Therefore the business is not with you. Move along," Scott informed him. "As he is the lord of this town, it becomes my business," the man said. "Lord?" Danny laughed. "Move along, fool, and go inform this self-appointed lord that he has company," Danny said, and the man turned about without another word and moved away from us. I did not quite understand that. He was arguing with Danny and then just ended it and walked away. I continued to move with Danny and the others through the small town when two other men showed up. Okay, there is a possibility this may stop. So if it does, click the like if you like this. If not, click not. Whatever. If you haven't subscribed and you want to know when the next video comes out, please subscribe. And thank you. I just wanted to get that out of the way, just in case this stops, because I'm not sure. Anyway, if it does stop, we'll take off on video 10, where we left off on video 9. Okay, halt. Halt. You are to surrender into custody for trespassing on private property without prior notice, one said. "You're jesting, right?" "You are jesting," Mike said, as if he could not believe the man had the nerve to say those words. 59th decree. Any entrance by an outside circle outside of private established resident or community are to submit written notice of intent or send written notice of contempt before entering. Intend of circle right. The man said, "Sir, we are also the Sultan's circle. We need no written notice. Now go and tell John Sanders to release my property, returning said property to proper owner," Danny said, and I felt hatred rise within me as I saw my father walk up behind the man. For a moment, it was hard for me to breathe. How I hated this man. I just stood looking to him. "I am John Sanders, and I do not have any property of the throne. So you are being here is in violation to decree, as my officer stated." My father said, "I remain